Hello, my name is Bridget Canane. I am doing my lesson this week for class 635. So this week I am focusing on a student named Cecelia. She's about 2 years old. She is nonverbal at the moment, but they're unsure exactly what's going on because she is not saying any words, not mama, dada, anything like that. Nothing. So they're not sure if it's a hearing issue or a speech impairment. So to start off, my lesson is going to be about animals and making animal noises and connecting those two concepts, along with using chalk outside to learn to draw. Since it's the summertime, it'd be a nice idea to do with students. They love to do that. At least my kids do in my class during the regular school year. So taking chalk to learn the animal names and sounds that the animal might make. So the students will be learning all about animals, and they will learn to verbally express the sounds that they make and communicate with one another about them. The New York State Early Learning Guidelines standards that I'm using, Domain 3, Approaches to Learning, and its curiosity and interests for ages 18 to 36 months, shows interest in new and others activities. That would be with the chalk. When I bring the chalk out later in the lesson, you'll get why I say that. And Domain 4, Cognition and General Knowledge, Properties of Ordering. Children can identify and label shapes. At this age, I'm not sure if they definitely will be able to, but I will be trying to teach them during the lesson. Also, they can create and copy simple shapes made by others. So like when I make a shape, they could be able to imitate that. And also, scientific knowledge, same domain, scientific knowledge, children observe and describe characteristics of living things. So we will be talking all about animals, and they can explore and investigate physical properties of living and non-living things. So the students will be able to draw different animals that they choose and learn to recognize and create the sounds that these animals commonly make. In addition, the students will be able to associate the animal sounds with them by either drawing the picture, and also throughout this lesson they'll be turning and talking to their neighbor if they can. If they can't, there'll be a different thing for them, a modified for them, about their favorite animal through the lesson. So I'm going to get started. Some of the key vocabulary is, lion, roaring, hippopotamus, snorting, dogs barking, cows mooing, cat meowing, bird chirping, a walrus bellowing, an elephant trumpeting. So I don't know if you noticed, but throughout that, those are commonly known for an Eric Carle book called Polar Bear, What Do You Hear? So that's what I'll be reading to start the lesson off. It's by Bill Martin and Eric Carle. And I will have a printout of the words in addition to the story of the sound. So I would have written out moo for in one column. I'll have a worksheet. In one column would be the animals. I can show you some of the animals I would have cut out. These are the ones from Polar Bear, What Do You Hear? So I would cut those. The children can cut them out if they have the fine motor skills to do so. If they do not, they can. I can help them cut them out, and they can glue them on with me onto the opposite column, which would have the names of the sounds spelled out. So for a cow, not that they're not on this, but that's just one I would start with because most children know that is moo. So I would say to the child, can you find the animal that moos? And they would go on this paper and find the animal that moos, and I would cut it out for them or help them cut it out, or if they can cut it out, they'll cut it out, and then we will glue it onto the column right next to moo. So for a lion, can you find the animal that roars for me? And they can, if they're nonverbal, like Cecelia, she would point to the lion, and I would cut it out for her, or she would cut it out with me, depending if she can do it. She has really great fine motor skills, so she could probably do it with me. And we would glue it next to roar. That way they can recognize the letters. Not that they're learning it right now, but it can help them in the future. So that's what I would do for the worksheet. Some of the materials I'll need is polar bear, what do you hear? Sidewalk chalk, the worksheet. This with the one I was just explaining with the words written out. Glue sticks, scissors, expo markers, a whiteboard. Okay. So the prior academic learning and skills they might need to know. So because I'm going to be focusing on those animals in polar bear, what do you hear? I would want the students to know some animals maybe that they have at home. So I could say to them, this kid in my class, Robbie, what type of animal is Zuzu? Zuzu would be his dog. That's the name of his dog. And he would say a dog. And I would say, do you know what kind of noises Zuzu makes? And he would say, he barks, she barks. Or maybe he'll say, he meows. And I would say, no, what does a dog do? What does a cat do? We would go over that. What does a cow do? And so on. Just to, get the students' skills prior to this book out for everyone to go over together. We would be sitting in a rug during this time. Some misconceptions. Some people might think this is a little advanced for 2.5-year-olds. This might be true, but some children, like I said, she has great fine motor skills, Cecelia, the child that I was focusing on. So she could probably cut these out. She could hold a piece of chalk. She could hold a crayon. Some children might not be able to, and that's fine. We'll modify it as we go with the child, what they can and cannot do. It's not guaranteed. It's not mandatory that the students do all of this. I like to let my children choose what they want to do. So if some children want to do the worksheet, that's fine with me. If some people want to do the chalk outside, that's fine with me too, as long as I get to see what they know and what they need to work on. And at least I get to see them do at least one. Even if I speak to them one-on-one, that's fine too. Okay, so I'm going to get started on the lesson. So in the beginning of the lesson, I will ask students if any of them have pets at home, a cat, a dog, a bird, a parrot, whatever. I'll ask them to share what kind of noises they hear those animals make. For example, like I said, Robbie, I would ask him about Zuzu, what kind of noise does he make? I will ask them how to draw these if I wanted to draw them on the whiteboard in front of all the students. So I have a whiteboard in my classroom. I would say, what shape would I make if I wanted to draw a dog? The belly might be an oval, might be a rectangle, something simple and easy for them. Then their head, I would make a circle, smaller circle. Then for their ears, it would just be a little loops. The tail, the rectangle for the legs, something simple. Same thing with the cat, triangles as the ears, circle for the head, a circle for the body, or a rectangle for the body, whatever, a tail, and some legs. As I'm doing this, I'll be showing them pictures of the different animals and ask them what shapes do I need to draw for each part of the body. The purpose will be so that they can recognize these animals whenever they hear them without seeing them. For example, in a television show, or if these kids go to a zoo, they'll be able to hear these animals before they see them and know what they're about to see. Or they'll be able to see them and hear and know what they're about to hear. Some children might get scared of certain animals' noises. They'll know that this is what this animal makes. Yeah, so the reason I would be drawing on the whiteboard is for later in the lesson, during our gross motor time during the day, I would bring the students outside, and that's when I would bring out the sidewalk chalk, and they would be able to use the sidewalk chalk, and I would ask them, maybe in small groups of 3 or 4, hey, why don't you guys come over? I brought some chalk out for us. Maybe you guys can draw me your favorite animal from the book on the sidewalk, and I would be able to sit with them and see what they can draw, how their fine motor skills are, how they can communicate with one another about their favorite animal. One might be like, no, I want to draw a boa constrictor. You can't draw that. You see how their peers interact with one another. The students will be giving me feedback throughout this time on the carpet when I read when I ask them about, when I ask them about the pets at home. They'll be giving me feedback sitting on the rug and answering the questions that I ask, or asking questions, whatever they are willing to give me. This is all from prior knowledge. The students will repeat the noises I make, showing them how to say it once. The students. So, for example, if I brought Robbie up and asked him, "Can you tell me what a dog says?" And he would say, "Bark, bark, bark." And then I would say, "Can everyone in the class bark for me?" And, and then I would say, "Okay, bark. What about, at home I have a cat. What noise does a cat make? Does anyone know?" And that's the student will raise their hand and say, "Meow." And I would say, "Can you come up and show my friends how to meow?" And they'll meow. And then I will say, "That's fantastic. Can everyone be a cat right now and meow around the room?" And they'll meow around my tables and whatever else, all around the class. I like to let my kids have a lot of fun. And then, so introducing the new content, I will tell the students then that we're going to learn about some new animals and some new sounds. I'll begin with the story Polar Bear, What Do You Hear by Bill Martin Jr. and Eric Carle. Throughout the story, we will go over the animals and their sounds, and I will stop to ask the children to repeat the sounds as we go along. So the students will give me some feedback from reading the story. They're repeating the sounds that the animals make. So throughout the story, a lion roars, or a hippopotamus, I forget what they said the hippopotamus does, but it's all in the vocabulary. And snorting. I would want the students to go out, so I would go on and on about it, and I would want them to repeat it back to me the best they can. They're only 2.5 at this point. So some guided practice. At the end of the story, I don't know if you have read it, but at the end of the story, they go over all the animals. So I would want to go over all the animals and what they say and do it with the children. And then if anybody wanted to do it themselves, that's fine too. We'll then ask the students to pick their favorite animal from the story and turn and talk to a friend about that animal and the sound that the animal makes. So the students will be given a lot of support and able to ask any questions they want to ask to me during this time. I will be going around observing each group of 2, and I'll be asking them what their favorite animal was, why do they love that animal, what sound does that animal make, and if they can reenact that animal. Give me your best impression of a boa constrictor, of a flamingo, whatever it might be. This is a way for me to tell that they can correctly connect the right noise to the right animal. So they're not saying a flamingo is hissing. They're saying that a flamingo or a hippopotamus is snorting, a lion is roaring, and so on. The children will do a turn and talk to the friends next to them. A student can name an animal, and their neighbor will have to tell them the sound, or vice versa. The student could make the sound and have their friend they're talking to during the turn and talk try and guess what animal it is. This is to help the students decide what animal goes with what sound, and correctly. This will be while I'm going around group to group. It'll take about 5 minutes. It shouldn't be long at all. There's only 17 in them, so it'll be a couple groups. This is just a mini assessment for myself to know who needs a little bit more help, what do I have to focus on more throughout the day, throughout the lesson. So then we'll do independent practice. So during the gross motor time, which we usually go outside, I was talking to you about, they will have the option to play. Most children play in the playground, and I will try and pull a few, 3 or 4, maybe 5 children over to the sidewalk. It's right in the playground. And ask them, did you love that story, Polar Bear? Because I love that story. Could you guys draw me your favorite animal from that story that you were talking to your neighbor about? Or maybe you changed your mind. What's your second favorite animal? Could you draw me that? And we would have gone over all these shapes on the whiteboard already. So these students had already seen what it takes to draw that animal. So that is what, and because the chalk is not an everyday activity, I don't always bring it out. This will really entice some students to come up and really want to use the chalk and draw all over the playground. it'll really, really get them intrigued, which will help me because it will help me to see exactly who wants to be involved and is confident in their answers and confident in what they are about to draw and confident in their drawing, and who needs a little more help, who needs me to pull it out of them, and who do I need to sit with one-on-one exactly, or in a small group of 3 or 4, and not even 3, 2 or 3, and say, I know you didn't want to draw with the chalk outside. Maybe you want to draw with a crayon for me. Maybe you'd want to paint it, and so on. While the children are drawing a favorite animal, I will be going to each child one by one, asking what noise does that animal make. So if they're drawing a giant snake on the floor, a boa constrictor, can you tell me what kind of noise that makes? Yes. And so on. This is also just reaffirming to me that they know their noises. Okay. So majority of the children at this point will be playing in the playground, but a small group will be pulled off, and after they draw their picture, they can go back and play, and I'll call three or four more other children. Hey guys, come over here. I have some chalk I want you to play with. Do you think you could draw me one of your favorite, and let's do it again, your favorite animals that we talked about today? And some children might not want to do that, and that's okay. I'm not going to, push it, but that's what I would like, and I'm sure most children will want to do it. And if not, then I know that inside, later on, I'll have to pull that other child to the side and say, hey, listen, I know you didn't want to play with the chalk, but maybe now you'd want to draw me your favorite picture so I can put it up on our board for when mom and dad come in later, or whatever it might be. So to close out the lesson, because play is such a large part of the learning process, I like to give my children different options, like I said, so that I'm able to check in with all of them, but maybe it might be on different terms. So some things might appeal more to other children. Like I said, some children might have sensory issues and not want to play with chalk or not want to paint. So I've had children that don't play with that, they don't mess with that. So that's fine. I understand that's up to them. So then I would say, I have special crayons inside. They're sparkly. Do you think you'd want to draw me a picture? Or a special marker, whatever it might be. I have a magic wand. That's my marker. And the animal tends to come alive if you draw it on this piece of paper, and you can make the noises for them, and we can cut it out, and we can put it in the block center, and you can play with it, or whatever it might be. So, if the student does not want to play with the chalk, perhaps they have a sensory issue, like I said, and that's okay. When we go inside, I'll ask them to come over and help me play with or draw a picture of their favorite animal from the book. Cecelia, during this, she probably would want to play with the chalk, but I don't think she'd be able to tell me their favorite animal. She wouldn't be able to tell me her favorite animal right now, or make the noise, and that's okay. I would just want her to play with it. I would ask her to, but she probably wouldn't be able to do it. So she could play with the chalk and draw whatever she wants to draw. And then when we go inside, I would bring the book out, the physical book, Polar Bear, What Do You Hear? And I would say, can you turn to the page that the animal that hisses is on? And I would, hope she would go to the boa constrictor, or the animal that snorts. Can you point to the animal that snorts? She is starting to point, so I think if I got her at the right time, she would definitely be able to do that. Find me the animal in the book that, is laughing or whatever. What do you see? The zookeeper, the children, just different examples of that. Let's see. Again, this is just reaffirming to me that they know the correct sound for that animal. This would also show that they know how to follow directions. So while some are playing, I would call students over, like I said, especially those that refuse to play with the chalk or refuse to draw a picture or whatever they might not be into that day. Those are the children I would focus on and pull them over to the side and say, can you go through the book and find me your favorite animal? And then once they find that, can you tell me what that animal says? I forget, for example. I would prompt the students who do not speak much. So for the students who are nonverbal, they would use the method of pointing to respond to my questions while using the physical book. For an extension, if I had extra time, the lesson can be extended if time permits by having students come up while on the rug, maybe once we come out from inside, and trying to describe to friends different animals than we have already discussed. So maybe they love monkeys. They could come up and say, reenact, ooh, ah, ooh, ah, and the students would have to guess what animal it is. So it would be a little game, which the children love to play games. So, for another thing is the worksheet that I have. That would be for the students who I think are capable. Whoever wants to try is more than welcome to try. But I have worksheets, and that will have different pictures of the animals from the story on one side of the page and the noise on the other, like I mentioned earlier. For those who cannot cut yet, they can match them using a crayon, or the way I had this one printed out, I would just help them cut it out, or maybe I would cut it out prior to them coming over and say, can you find the animal that moos? Well, not moos because the cow's not on this, but an animal that trumpets, or is trumpeting, and they would, find the elephant. This is perfect for a student who's nonverbal. Find the elephant, use the glue stick, put it right next to trumpeting, and I would be saying the words, and they would be finding the animal. You could do that in maybe one-on-one or groups of two. Will be a good one. There are a few more things I can do to help the students struggling in the lesson. In the block area, I have so many animals in my classroom block area. So if a student is really struggling, we have 2 playtimes. So during the second playtime, if I still think that they're still struggling, I would probably pull them to the block area and say, I think you maybe want to come play with me in the blocks. And I have polar bears, I have lions, I have everything there. And we would practice, and we'd play a game, and I would be the zookeeper, or I would be the polar bear, and I would say, we could reenact the story and act it out. I also have puppets that the students could use to act out the story, and the other students who I know are well endowed with all of it, they can sit and be the audience. And the children who I think might be struggling, it's your special day. You're going to be the polar bear today. Here's your puppet. Go practice. I want you to hear you practicing. And then 5 minutes to call time. And then I would bring everyone to the rug and say, you're going to be the audience today. My couple of friends who I think might be struggling, I'm not going to say that, but my couple of friends are going to be the animals. And they're going to put on the show of polar bear, what do you hear? Just an activity that they could do if we have extra time. Even in the block area, we could go over this lesson in a condensed fashion, using maybe animals that they might know more. The boa constrictor is a tough one. A lot of children don't know what that is. So maybe do a sheep and a farm animal, a bird, a dog, a cat, a monkey, a cow, stuff like that. Yeah. So as I mentioned, for students with special needs and IEPs, a sensory issue is one of them. They won't have to use the chalk. They could just use a crayon when we go inside. Or I would have Cecelia pick an animal from the pages and point. I have another student in the classroom who also receives speech therapy. So I'm always very, very careful to articulate all my words and vocabulary that I'm using for that lesson to the students. So I want to make sure that I'm saying it the correct way, so that when they go home and they want to tell their mom, their dad, their brother, their sister that what they learned today, that they're saying it in the right way and that I explained it in the right way. And that they learn it, they gain knowledge that way. Students feel confident when they know something correctly. So for English learners, I don't have any students right now that are not English speaking. But if I did, I would make it a point to, maybe I should do this anyway, but I would make it a point to have, in the Writing Center, I would have index cards or pieces of paper that have my names of the students of the classroom of the lesson. So I would have the animals. So in Spanish, el gato, I would put a picture of a cat, the word cat, C-A-T, and underneath that, el gato. For the children who are not speaking English, they can start to learn the English word of it, and the children that already know the English word can learn a different language. I think that's a great idea. I really should get that involved in my, sorry, my computer's going crazy, in my classroom now anyway. So yeah, that's just something I could do for English learners. I would also, throughout the lesson itself, while I was doing those expo markers on the board, I would be writing El Gato so the student knows what it is. I would write cat, El Gato, and then they would help me draw pictures, the shapes and whatnot, so that they know. Or whatever language it might be. It doesn't have to be Spanish. Okay. So, according to the principal theories that I went off of here, I just want to make sure I did not skip anything. Yeah. So the principal theories, research theory and learning of teaching. According to Cook, Klein, and Chen, there are many theories that explain to be very important for growth. Exclaimed to be very important for growth for students. This is shown throughout Chapter 8, and one of the major things for a student's growth is their communication skills. Whether they are special needs or not, they have to be able to communicate somehow what's going on. Well, they don't have to, but we hope they can. So that's very crucial that those students find some way, whether it be sign language, whether it be body language, whether it be physical, words. It just there has to be some way for us to communicate so that we can know what that child might need. Outside of the classroom even, we need to know, I need to go to the bathroom. I need help. Anything like that, you want to be able to know from the students. So yeah, there's a few theories I wrote about here. Let me find one. With careful planning and strategies that facilitate communication, this is a quote by Cook, Klein, and Chen, it can be incorporated into all the classroom activities. Like I said, the way we plan it as teachers is how well the students will be communicated the right way. So having that turn and talk helps those students to pull from each other, learn from each other. Even having the gross motor skills outside, that's a great skill. Their body language, learning to have people around them and not in their space is a big thing children need to learn. So their conversations, and if they have a problem, they need to go find an adult. These are all skills that children learn. They don't know it off the bat. So Chapter 8 had a great theories about nurturing communication. So my assessments, like I said, would be turn and talk and me going to each one of them. It would help me to understand what students might be struggling with and what students might be struggling at all, and what animals, and what I need to focus on a little bit more throughout the rest of the lesson. So this will be a perfect mini assessment throughout, like right in the beginning, to know who do I need to focus on a little more. This shows what child can connect the correct sound to the correct animal. Some open-ended questions definitely help to bring students' communication out more. So students are it's not just yes or no. They will talk. And I noticed that Cook, Klein, and Chen said that might not be the best thing for students with certain impairments. But I do think that it's a good idea. I'm sorry. I do think that it's a good idea to. I personally, I find that it helps bring students communication out a little bit, depending on the child. Obviously, it's all dependent on each child. You know your students more than I do. I find that my students like to talk and they like to tell me everything that they did every minute of every day, which is great. I love that they like to tell me that stuff. But some students might not be like that, and that's fine. It's all how you get to know the child. I'm sorry, my computer keeps going crazy. And the other assessment was either drawing with the chalk, which I would hope most children would do. But if they don't, that's okay. Having them come inside, like I said, the kids with the sensory and whatever other issues they might have, having them come inside and draw a picture of their favorite animal would do justice for me, as long as they can continue to tell me what sound and draw the correct shapes. Well, maybe not the correct shapes, but trying to draw them the best they can. Some children can't even hold a pencil or a pen or a crayon, anything at that point. But for Cecelia in this situation, the child that I was focusing on, I think she would be able to do it. So yeah, I would give feedback to the students about their shapes, what they might need help with, and help them throughout the worksheets. So that would be my lesson, and I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you so much. Have a great day.